Welcome to the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. My name is Rob Murgatroyd, and I am a former doctor turned lifestyle entrepreneur. Each week, I interview some of the best minds on the planet on the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. Today's episode is a mini-sode that we call Fri-Date with the Wife. In these mini-sodes, my wife Kim and I deconstruct the strategies that we've developed over the last decade to not only grow personally, but to turn our struggles into lessons and create fulfillment in all areas of our lives. Excuses are over. It's time to live. Let's dig into today's topic. All right, before we jump into this episode, I want to invite you to be considered for my Work Hard, Play Hard Mastermind by completing an application at workhardplayhardmastermind.com. So this mastermind is not like any mastermind you may have been to or heard of, I promise you. This mastermind is for 6 to 7 figure entrepreneurs that are working too damn much and aren't taking the time to have amazing experiences around the world with an incredible tribe of people. So every 100 days or so, I drop you into new experiences that are specifically designed to elevate your thinking, to give you new ideas. Look, you get your best ideas not staring at a computer. And actually, this is the way high-level people really collaborate with each other. They do it over a glass of champagne, watching the sunset in the south of France. And we'll be doing things just like that. In fact, we'll be taking a vintage car ride through the French Riviera this summer, and we'll be truffle hunting in Florence in the fall, to name just a few of the experiences so that I can give you a feel for it. So if you are ready to do some fun stuff around the world and really, really want to level up your tribe in one shot, fill out an application at workhardplayhardmastermind.com. We'll jump on a call and we'll see if it's a good fit. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Well, Kimberly, go fly a drone, Murgatroyd.
Where do you come up with this shit?
It's just whatever's in me. It's whatever's in the moment, whatever's in me. How do I sound? Do I sound okay? Am I too loud?
You're always too loud. That's rule number 1. But you're from Queens. What can we do with that? Speaking of, your mother's coming down this week. Do you remember when your mother came in town and she's standing on the balcony having a conversation with her friends and she's using Queens volume, but in Atlanta?
Do you know what's so great is my mother doesn't know how to work a podcast. So this is actually good.
That you know of.
Well, everybody, I am so glad that you're here, and there's no reason that you have to listen to our marital problems. But what we're going to talk about today is something that's sort of interesting. I'm going to do the best I can to describe what it is that is in my brain, which is not easy because there's
a fucking 3-ring circus.
It is a 3-ring circus.
And why is it 3 rings? Like, I feel like you probably have 6-ring circus and a whole act of Cirque du Soleil waiting to come out.
No, because the way we remember things is, Tony Robbins taught me this. It's 1, 2, many. So we can only handle 3 things in our short-term memory. But listen, this is not the reason why we are here today. The reason why we are here today is we are gathered here today. We're here today to talk about, let me see how I can put this. As we go through our lives, or as we go through our days, there are things that pop up in our days that we may or may not pay attention to because we're busy, we have a to-do list, and we have a lot of things that we need to do. But the way that the universe speaks to us is through whispers. Really, really soft, in almost inaudible whispers that it is our job to pay attention to. And some of those whispers are done through maybe an emotion that we feel when we're with somebody or we're doing something. Sometimes they come to us as actual words that we hear, or sometimes they appear to us in the form of, maybe another person, somebody that you bump into on the street. And, when I've been looking back on the last couple of years of being a chiropractor, those whispers were there. And the whispers for me were, pulling up into the driveway of my clinic and getting this sinking feeling that was like not really loud, but it was something that was there. And then walking in the office and having, my staff walk up to me, and they're great staff, great people, and feeling like, I just don't want to talk to you right now. Like I am not
nothing personal.
I'm just not in the mood for this.
Staff included me when I worked there?
And you haven't worked there for years.
And that's true.
And then I'm embarrassed to say this, but it's true. And then it went on to being with patients and feeling like,
your calling ended there.
And it ended. And the point is that I was not willing to listen to that earlier. And I spent years, and that got louder and louder and louder. So I think that there are things like this that come in many, many different forms. And Kim, I know that you recently read a book by my man crush's wife, Tom Brady, which is really funny that my crush is not on his wife.
Seriously.
My crush is actually on him.
Tom.
Yeah. And you were reading Giselle's autobiography. Maybe you can add a little bit of color here for this.
Yeah. Well, so I just think I read this book, and initially I read the book because I was like, okay, so I think you actually just got it for me. That's probably why I read it. And I love anything about another person. Doesn't even matter if they're famous or not. So I started to read it, and I know I've talked about this on this podcast before, but there were so many things that she said that I found so insightful and not what I imagined. And one of the things that she said was that you can have a lot of chapters in life. You can become a doctor, and then you can become a philosopher, and then you can become a this and a that. And I think we get so stuck in the shoulds of life that, I remember when you and I first met, you were like, well, people, they choose a career and it's up to them if they want to be, a teacher, if they want to be a doctor, and they pave their own path. And it was very matter of fact, like you go to school, you get a degree, and that's what you do until you're 105. And that's when I first met you. There wasn't this whole next act thing for many years later. I think until you started to feel these nudges, because initially you were called to chiropractic, if you say. I remember you used to light up when the little kids would come into the clinic, and you had an entire little kid room, and you would pretend you just adjusted Spider-Man, and you were so involved and present because I felt like you were being called for a higher purpose in that clinic and to really make a difference in your community. But then you hit a point where that chapter was closing and you were being nudged. I think you probably got a couple frying pans because you didn't listen to the nudge. And eventually, we just made a decision to listen and to take action on it, the nudges that are along the way. And, one thing Giselle said, I remember in her book, is she was on this like hamster wheel of this career where it was like, you're up late, you're drinking wine, you're eating, you're doing this, you're doing that. And she was having anxiety and she was having all these pressures and this massive hamster wheel. And this voice inside her was nudging her in a different direction, nudging her to do something different. And she said that it was up to her. The nudges are there. The signs are there. The people that you meet on the street, they're put there for a reason. It's up to you whether or not you want to see and take action on what life is showing you, or if you want to stay on that hamster wheel. And for me, I just thought that was so profound because you've been on a hamster wheel for such a long time that the nudges and the signs and everything are just kind of passing you by, and your fear kept you on that hamster wheel.
Yeah,
until it didn't.
I think that's so true. One of the things that popped up when you were talking about that is, are we meant to do only one thing in life? Are we meant to only go to Alabama and to never go to Paris? That's just not the way life is. We're meant to do many, many different things. Using the chiropractic thing as an example, I had to make a decision to throw into the fire what was no longer serving me. And, in some ways, I wish I listened to that 2 years earlier, because I would have saved a lot of people, including myself, a lot of aggravation. And I think the bigger point in this is that when you're not being true or listening to what's coming to you, you're not serving other people that are around you.
Well, here's the other thing though. Why aren't you listening to what that nudge is? Why aren't you listening to that voice? Possibly because you're so in the present in the day to day. You're waking up and you're late for work. You're, maybe grabbing breakfast on the way out. You're dropping the kids off. You're in that day-to-day monotony of life where you got bills flying at you and this problem and you're putting out that fire and you got this work thing, that you're not taking the time to calm your brain and to actually listen to what that inner voice is. And, what I loved with Giselle is she talked about how your higher self, you have yourself, you get the lower self that hopefully you've evolved from, and then you have that higher self. That higher self is already there and it already knows the answer, and the higher self is the one that's speaking to you. But you can't hear the higher self if you got so much chatter going on around you all the damn time. So if you're going from this to that to this to that to this to that, and you're living in the anxiety, or you're living in that stressed achiever. Like, there are people that love to be a stressed achiever. They feel like they are tackling the day if they are stressed as fuck. And that's what they do. That's what fuels them. But guess what? If that's you and you're just going boom, 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 boom all day long, when are you going to ever have the moment to listen to that voice, to see the sign, to meet somebody you haven't seen on the street in 10 years and go, I wonder why they're put in my life? You're not. You're just on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And you don't take the time to listen to your higher self that actually has the answer that you're looking for.
I'm studying a lot of Joe Dispenza's work, and he's talking about exactly what you're talking about, which is the hormones of stress. He said the hormones of stress is probably the biggest killer in North American life. We spend so much time living in the past in our minds, or having such negative thoughts, that the stress hormones come out. But we're the only species that actually can do that. So we can think a thought and create a stressful reaction. If an animal is being chased by another animal, they're going to go into stress, and their body is designed to live in stress for a period of time. Let's say another animal is chasing them. But after that stress has worn off, 15 minutes later, the gazelle who was being chased by the lion is in a pond somewhere drinking water and doesn't have that stress anymore.
They're not thinking about it. They're not thinking about that damn lion.
They're not thinking about the damn lion.
By the way, I find this hard to believe. And how did they know? Like, did they question the lion?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They spoke to some talking gazelles, and those gazelles explained that once they're drinking back in the water, it's gone.
It's over.
Yeah, it's gone. But here's the point. The point is that you need to have some kind of practice that is going to allow you to listen to that higher self. When you are, I hate to get on my mother. I'm going to get on my mother here for a second. But my mother has like this voice in her head that's like, yang, 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 yang.
Oh God,
do you know what I mean?
She ever hears this podcast?
It's just like, you can look, you could just see it, right? She's just got this crazy thing that's always talking and talking.
A lot of mothers have that. It's the chatter.
It's all the kids they raised, right? And so it doesn't stop. And obviously, I don't know about you listeners out there. If your mom is meditating, God bless them if they are. My mother isn't meditating, and I know that she could listen. We'll use her as an example because she's coming in 3 days, and I'm a little anxious about it. If she had a little bit of time that she was meditating, she can hear some of the voices that are coming in. So I think the thing to really understand with this whole point is making sure that you have some kind of practice that's in your life that you can allow yourself the downtime to listen to the voices or the feelings or the emotions. Sometimes they're not a voice. Sometimes it's just like, I just got this feeling. I don't know. Like, listen to it.
So on that method, I'm going to give a method, so I'm thinking ahead. But
the Kim method?
Why don't you drink a little louder over there?
Did that sound loud?
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And you know how much I love the sound of people drinking.
By the way, let's do a little digression here. So Kim and I, one day, I grabbed something to drink, okay? Listen.
Are we reenacting?
Yeah, hold on, listen.
Oh my God, I want to vomit right now.
So she hears that noise. And she's like, "What are you doing?"
No,
and I'm like, "No, hold on, let me finish." So hold on a second, let me finish. So she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What am I doing? I'm drinking water." She's like, "Okay, but that noise." I'm like, "What?" What noise?
No. You got to do it right. He has a 40-ounce water bottle. He's not just taking one small sip, and it drove me crazy. This is a 40-ounce water bottle that takes him 15 minutes to slam as he's guzzling, making that exact noise. Okay.
First of all, I have it timed. Okay. It's 7:00 to 7:08 every
it's
morning.
8 minutes
it's
of
8
guzzling.
Minutes. Okay. But this is the reason why we're telling you this. So,
because I'm afflicted.
Yeah. You know this genetic test, this 23andMe, you find out where you're from, what country, this whole business. So we do the test, and you basically, if you don't know what it is, you spit into a test tube, and 3 months later, you get a report that will freak you out about your biology, about your history, about
you have
diseases.
An option to add the health.
Yeah, you can add a bunch of stuff to it. Most people are familiar with it, but one of the things in the I'm going to call it biometric data because I don't know what it is. It'll say like your index finger is longer than your middle finger, and your big toe is long. It gives you these weird things. You have a crease in your left ear, and you're like, holy shit, this is actually right. Well, one of them, I can't remember exactly what it is, but one of them says that when you hear people drinking or eating, it bothers you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, my father used to hate the sounds of me making noises. And I didn't even knew that I made noises. So apparently there are people that are out there that could care less if somebody is chewing or drinking something. And there are other people that it's like nails on a chalkboard.
It's misophonia. And it is...
that's right.
You hate the sound of chewing. It's misophonia. And so it says on mine, it more likely to hate the sound of chewing. And so chewing, drinking. So just so you know, if anyone out there is like, I hate that too, it's a condition. I want you to know it's a genetic predisposition. And if you are someone that's like, I can't believe my wife gets on me about me chewing, it's a genetic predisposition.
I had mesohornia, which is a whole different thing.
All right, let's get back to where we were, right? So one of the things I think with listening to these nudges, and I don't even know how we got on to, oh yeah, you were drinking. Would you stop drinking that for God's sake?
I tried to make the noise, but it went up my nose.
Oh my God. All right. And how'd that feel? That was like, it's raspberry lime sparkling spindrift that just went up your nose. So I know that probably fizzled and got it. He's turning purple.
I feel like I just did a bar of heroin. Go ahead.
So I don't even know where I was or what I was doing or what I was talking about. But what I do want to say is to take it back to where you were talking about before, when you were talking about how you have to listen to that nudge. And, the way that I'm putting this into my life now is I'm putting it front and center. I'm like, okay, so when I feel a feeling, I need to go with that feeling. So, right before we jumped on this podcast, we're walking down the street. This lady ran out and she's like, oh my God, do you remember me? This lady was a waitress that took great care of us at this private club we were members at like 15 years ago. And I do remember her, and she was so wonderful and so sweet. And we caught up and we exchanged numbers. And, moments like that I could sit there and go, oh, that's so nice I ran into her. But I'm like, there's a greater purpose of why I ran into her. I don't know what it is yet, but there's a greater purpose. So I'm letting the universe know, universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. I'm letting the universe know that I am open to whatever its master scheme is that's working to bring me what I want and what I'm envisioning. Because, people put out in their life and they're like, I just really want this business, and I just really want this, and I just really want that. But then they focus on all of the things they don't have or why it's not working. And they put their focus there instead of focus on manifesting the bigger dream. Now, how do you know if you don't have this like massive dream in your life that the person you just met and dismissed because you were too busy to talk to wasn't the perfect person that was going to unlock the door to allow you into that dream? Like, you have to be open to all of these things. So when you're going through life, whether it's quite literally a sign on the road or a person you may meet or a nudge that you get to make a call or to do a Facebook Live or to take an action, take it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You have to take it. So what I'm doing now is we opened a P.O. box the other day because we're going to be, in Europe for 4 months. So we need somewhere to put our mail. And I was driving and I was like, I'm being nudged right now to drive to my P.O. box. I'm going to listen. And I drove to my P.O. box and there was a check in there for $300. I was like, well, that's why I was being nudged. So you got to be open to listening to these nudges and to focus on the positive parts of this, focusing on manifesting what you want and not stressing about the lack that you feel that you have.
Yeah, I think, we used to use the term, we haven't used it much anymore, but we used to use the term called inspired actions. And I think that, sometimes when you have a goal or a vision or something that you're after, the universe says, okay, well, he or she is serious about this, so let me give them a little bit of a impetus or a feeling, an emotion, a thought to follow on. So when you get those little nudges, inspired actions, thoughts, God winks, whatever your word is, you get the idea. Follow them. And sometimes I think we think that we have this, I know that I'm maybe in the minority of a lot of people, but I really spend a lot of time the day before and the morning of prioritizing my day, getting all my ducks in a row. And I just have this perfect day in mind. And then it's out the window within the first 15 minutes of me waking up. Like nothing happens the way it's supposed to. And some of that, I think, is supposed to be that way. Because I think that that's just the way life is. We're not robotic. We're not meant to do things exactly. And what I've come to realize in life is that there are not any absolutes. It's not you make a list the night before, you review it the next morning, and you execute the list exactly that way. And it's not that you only wake up and you just go through your day and you just sort of like,
wait for the universe to send you a sign.
It's both. It's both. You have a plan, but you're open to the flexibility to know that the plan may be out the window and that you may be listening to some inspired actions. The older I get, the more I realize that life is just filled with balances. It's not this or that. It's both.
It's both. And, back to being able to actually hear those inspired actions. It's really hard when you're stressed about money, when you're anxious about needing to find a job, or you have family issues going on, or whatever it is that's stressing you in the moment. Maybe you're not where you want to be. Maybe you're in that chiropractic office and you just don't like it anymore and it's not bringing you joy. How do you find the time or the clarity in mind to listen to that nudge, right? You have to build that in and create some sort of time period for yourself to be able to quiet your mind, whether that's meditation, yoga, or anything that quiets your mind. But you have to do something that takes you off that hamster wheel and allows your mind to calm down and allows all that chatter to go away so you can actually listen to the voice that is trying to speak to you.
I also think you need to be willing to ask. So right now, there's somebody that is in our life personally who, is a $1 million entrepreneur, but, is not in a place where she absolutely loves it any longer. And she's willing to reach out for some help. And she's willing to reach out and say, hey, can you give me a little bit of advice? I know you've been down this road. So if you're getting a nudge, don't try and be an island. No man's an island, as they say. Just reach out to somebody to talk to them and say, hey, look, I'm getting this feeling like I just don't know if this is the right thing for me anymore. And sometimes just saying it, just being willing to acknowledge to the universe that you heard it, be willing to dialogue with somebody and be open to being vulnerable to say, hey, I know that you see me as the chiropractor. I know that you see me as this person, but I'm just not so sure I love it anymore. I'm just feeling like I may be open to a change. Can we maybe sit down and, have a glass of wine together and, bounce some ideas? Be willing to do that.
I think that's amazing advice.
Well, we're going to leave it right there.
Okay, drop the mic.
Drop the mic, everybody.
Do you need to slurp anymore for the people at home? Oh my God.
Have a great week, everybody. See you next week. All right. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode and you know someone that needs some help in either stepping up their work hard game or their play hard game, it would mean the world to me if you shared this podcast with them to help me get this movement out there. So if you like what you heard, head on over to iTunes, take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, and I will be forever grateful. So until the next episode, excuses are over. It's time to live.